Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel Unity, watching the massive Valdorian space station grow larger against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars. After 2 centuries of searching the cosmos for intelligent life, humanity had finally made contact. The Valdorians, with their crystalline technology and mastery of gravitational forces, had invited Earth to send representatives for what they called a cultural exchange. Quite a sight, isn't it? Dr. Marcus Reed joined her at the viewport, his weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass. As the team's xenolinguist, he'd spent months studying the preliminary language data the Valdorians had shared. Though I can't shake the feeling we're missing something important in the translation. Sarah nodded, adjusting the collar of her formal diplomatic uniform. The wording in their invitation was peculiar. They kept referring to proving worth and demonstrating potential, almost like they're evaluating us. Captain Diana Torres approached from behind, her military bearing evident despite wearing civilian attire. The Security Council had insisted on sending a military observer, though they'd agreed to keep it discreet. That's been bothering me too. The 4th member of their team, Dr. James Zhang, looked up from his datapad. As their xenobiologist, he'd been analyzing everything they knew about Valdorian physiology. Their entire station architecture suggests a species obsessed with hierarchy and testing. Look at these patterns. Everything is arranged in levels, with clear progression markers. The Unity's docking procedure went smoothly, too smoothly. The Valdorian gravitational technology pulled them in with precise, almost mechanical efficiency. As the airlock cycled, Sarah straightened her shoulders. Remember the protocols. We represent all of humanity here. Let's make a good first impression. The airlock opened to reveal a corridor that seemed to be made of living crystal, pulsing with subtle lights. 3 Valdorians waited for them. They were tall, elegant beings with iridescent skin that seemed to shift between solid and translucent. Their bodies were vaguely humanoid, but their movements had an unsettling fluidity, as if they weren't entirely bound by normal physics. "Welcome, children of Earth," the central figure spoke, their words translated by the team's neural interfaces. "We are the arbiters of worth. You stand in the chamber of judgment, where all new species must prove their right to join galactic civilization." Sarah felt her diplomatic smile freeze. "I'm sorry, but our understanding was that this would be a cultural exchange. We weren't informed about any kind of judgment." The Valdorians' crystalline features arranged themselves into what might have been amusement. "All exchanges must be earned, Ambassador. Surely you didn't think we would simply welcome an unknown species into the galactic community without testing their capabilities." Before any of them could respond, the crystal floor beneath their feet became transparent. They stood atop a vast arena complex, filled with various environments and obstacles. Sarah's stomach dropped as she realized what they were seeing. "The trials of worth begin now," the Arbiter announced. "Your species' future depends on your performance. Will humanity prove itself worthy of elevation, or will you join the ranks of those who failed and were deemed unready for contact?" "This is a violation of diplomatic protocol," Sarah protested, but she could already see the crystal walls shifting around them, sealing off their retreat to the Unity. "We demand to contact our government." "Protocol." The Arbiter's voice held genuine curiosity. "You mistake formality for substance, Ambassador. True diplomacy is proven through actions, not words. Your species claims to be ready for galactic civilization. Now you will demonstrate that readiness." Captain Torres moved closer to Sarah, her hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "They planned this from the start. The invitation, the specific request for our team composition." Dr. Reed's eyes widened. "The translation wasn't wrong. We just didn't understand the context. They'd been telling us exactly what this was from the beginning." "Correct, interpreter," the Arbiter acknowledged. "Your first trial begins in 1 planetary rotation. Use this time to prepare yourselves. Remember, you represent not just your own lives, but the future of your entire species." As the arbiters glided away, the team found themselves being guided by crystal formations into what was clearly a preparation chamber. The room was comfortable but secure, filled with information displays showing various alien species and what appeared to be previous trials. "Well," Dr. Zhang said, studying the displays intently, "at least they're giving us study materials. Look at this, records of every species that's gone through these trials. Success rates, failure points, biological data." Sarah moved to join him at the displays, her diplomatic training kicking in despite the situation. "Then we study everything we can. If they want to test humanity's worth, we'll show them exactly what humans can do when backed into a corner." "They made one serious mistake," Captain Torres added, a determined glint in her eye, as she began examining the chamber's layout. "They gave us time to prepare. And if there's one thing humans excel at, it's turning bad situations to our advantage." As the first day cycle began to fade, the 4 humans immersed themselves in the trial records, their initial shock transforming into focused determination. They had 24 hours to prepare for whatever challenges awaited them. 24 hours to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. The crystal walls pulsed with an almost smug satisfaction, as if they knew something their newest contestants didn't. But then again, the walls had never encountered humans before, and humans had a habit of defying expectations. The crystalline chamber shimmered with the artificial dawn of their second day in Valdorian custody. Dr. James Zhang hadn't slept, his eyes fixed on the historical trial records projected on the wall. Captain Torres found him there, surrounded by virtual displays, showing the fates of dozens of species who had faced these trials before. "Tell me you found something useful in all that data," Torres said, offering him a ration pack from their diplomatic supplies. "More than something," Zhang replied, his tired eyes bright with excitement. "The Valdorians aren't just testing physical capabilities, they're looking for specific traits: problem-solving, adaptability, ethical reasoning. And here's the interesting part: no species has ever succeeded by simply following the obvious path." Ambassador Chen joined them, Dr. Reed close behind. "Explain." "The trials are designed to be impossible if taken at face value," Zhang continued. "Look at the Proxians, technically superior to us in every way. They failed because they tried to overpower each challenge directly. But the Kilarians, a physically weaker species, made it through by finding creative solutions." Before they could discuss further, the chamber walls pulsed with light. The arbiter's voice filled the room. "The first trial begins. Enter the arena of mind." The floor beneath them became transparent, then intangible. They descended into a vast spherical chamber that seemed to be made of living mathematics. Geometric shapes shifted and flowed around them. Equations wrote themselves in the air, and multiple pathways branched out in every direction. "Welcome to the labyrinth of logic," the arbiter announced. "Your goal is simple: reach the center. But beware, each wrong choice has consequences, and some paths lead to termination. You have one planetary rotation to succeed." As the voice faded, Dr. Reed studied the floating equations with growing concern. "These aren't just decorative. They're some kind of multidimensional mathematical proofs. But they're using mathematical concepts I've never seen before. Look!" Torres pointed to where one of the paths split into 3 branches. Each was marked with different geometric symbols that pulsed with alien energy. "We need to choose." Sarah stepped forward, her diplomatic training kicking in. "Wait, Zhang, you said no species succeeded by taking the obvious path. What if we're not supposed to solve these equations at all? What if that's the trap?" Reed's eyes widened. "The Valdorians are testing our problem-solving abilities, but they're also testing our ability to think beyond our current understanding. These equations, they're impossible by human mathematics because they're based on Valdorian perceptions of reality. So we need to think like them," Torres asked, studying the paths with renewed interest. "No," Zhang interjected. "We need to think like humans while understanding their perspective. Look at the successful species in the records. They all found ways to apply their own unique strengths to the challenges. Sarah walked closer to the floating equations, watching how they shifted and flowed. These aren't just math problems. They're representing something else. Read, can you see any patterns in how they're moving? The xenolinguist stepped back, taking in the bigger picture. Yes, they're not random. The equations are flowing like a river system. They're showing energy paths that lead to the center. Torres added, her military training helping her spot the tactical significance. But some are stronger than others. Look at how they pulse. Zhang snapped his fingers. That's it. The Valdorians don't perceive reality in discrete paths like we do. They see energy flows. These aren't multiple paths at all. It's all one interconnected system. Sarah smiled as understanding dawned. So instead of choosing a single path, we follow the energy flow. Reed finished. Like riding a river's current instead of trying to swim across it. Torres wasn't entirely convinced, and the consequences for wrong choices. We're not making choices anymore, Sarah explained. We're adapting to the flow. That's what they want to see. Not our ability to solve alien math, but our ability to understand and adapt to new ways of thinking. Working together, they began to move through the labyrinth, not by walking down individual paths, but by positioning themselves where the energy flows converge. It wasn't easy. The flows shifted and changed, requiring constant adjustments and quick thinking. Several times they nearly strayed into dangerous areas, but their combined perspectives helped them stay on course. Hours passed as they made their way deeper into the sphere. Other species might have tried to memorize the patterns or force their way through, but the human team had realized something fundamental. The labyrinth wasn't a puzzle to be solved, but a dance to be learned. Finally, they'd reached the center, a pulsing core of pure mathematical energy. As they stepped into it, the sphere dissolved around them, returning them to the preparation chamber. The arbiter's voice held a note of what might have been approval. Fascinating. Most species attempt to conquer the labyrinth. You chose to understand and work with it instead. Perhaps there is more to your kind than we initially assessed. Rest now. The next trial will test different capabilities entirely. As the voice faded, the team exchanged tired but satisfied looks. They had passed the first trial, but more importantly, they had learned something crucial about their hosts and their tests. They're not just testing our abilities, Sarah observed. They're testing our ability to transcend our limitations, to think beyond our own perspective without losing what makes us human. Good thing humans have plenty of practice at that, Torres replied with a grim smile. We've been overcoming our limitations since we first looked up at the stars. They had passed the trial of mind, but as they settled in to rest and prepare, they all knew the physical challenges ahead would require every bit of human ingenuity they could muster. The Valdorians had seen how humans think. Next, they would see how humans fight. Captain Torres woke from a light sleep at the first sign of the chamber walls shifting color. She had insisted the team rest in rotation, keeping watch for whatever the Valdorians might throw at them next. The records they'd studied suggested the physical trials were often the deadliest, not because of raw combat, but because species typically exhausted themselves trying to overpower their opponents. Movement, she called out softly, and the others were instantly alert. Their time studying the trial records hadn't been wasted. They'd developed a deep respect for the Valdorians' subtle methods of testing. The arbiter's voice resonated through the chamber. The trial of physical prowess begins. But remember, strength alone has never been enough. The floor dissolved beneath them again, but this time they descended into what appeared to be a vast arena. Unlike the mathematical precision of the first trial, this space was raw and organic. Dense alien vegetation covered much of the ground, while crystalline formations provided both cover and obstacles. A pale purple sun cast multiple shadows across the terrain. Your task is survival, the arbiter announced. Face our hunters. Prove your species' worth through combat prowess. You have until the sun sets. Zhang studied their surroundings with professional interest. The plant life. It's not just decoration. These species are all from different worlds. They've created an environment that's foreign to everyone. Look, Reed pointed to what appeared to be tracks in the soil. Something's already here. Multiple somethings. Sarah examined the diplomatic band still on her wrist. They let us keep our basic equipment. That has to be significant. Because they want to see how we use it, Torres realized. Zhang, those trial records. What was the success rate for species that tried to fight their way through this? Less than 10%, he replied grimly. But there was something interesting about the successful attempts. The species that survived didn't just fight. A low growl interrupted him. Through the vegetation, they caught glimpses of movement. Their hunters had arrived, bioengineered creatures that seemed to combine the most lethal aspects of predators from a dozen worlds. Crystalline armor protected vital areas, and their eyes gleamed with unnatural intelligence. They're hurting us, Torres observed, noting how the creatures were moving to cut off certain paths of retreat. Wait, Sarah held up her hand. The Valdorians value intelligence over brute force. These hunters, they're not just animals. Look at how they're coordinating. Reed's eyes widened. They're intelligent. This isn't just a combat trial. It's a first contact scenario with a potentially hostile species. The hunters paused their advance, as if acknowledging that the humans had realized something important. Their postures remained aggressive, but they seemed to be waiting. So we have options, Zhang said slowly. We can fight. Or we can communicate, Sarah finished. She stepped forward, keeping her movements deliberate and non-threatening. The Valdorians want to see how we handle contact with unknown life forms. Violence should be our last resort, not our first instinct. Torres moved to cover her, but didn't raise her weapons. Careful. They're still predators. Sarah focused on the largest of the hunters, which seemed to be the pack leader. Using her diplomatic training, she began to demonstrate peaceful intent through universal body language, open palms, relaxed posture, steady eye contact. The hunter tilted its head, showing unexpected comprehension. Reed, watching the interaction intently, noticed something crucial. The crystalline components in their armor. They're similar to Valdorian technology. They might respond to energy signatures. Zhang quickly accessed their equipment's power settings. Our diplomatic bands, they emit a specific frequency to interface with Valdorian systems. If we modify the output. Working together, they adjusted their bands to emit a harmonic frequency. The effect was immediate. The hunter's aggressive posture relaxed slightly, and the pack leader took a step forward, its crystalline components resonating with their modified signals. We're not prey anymore, Torres realized. We've demonstrated that we're intelligent beings worthy of communication. The next few hours became an intricate dance of diplomacy and survival. The hunters would present different challenges. Territorial disputes, resource competition, potential threats, and the team had to respond appropriately each time. Sometimes negotiation worked, sometimes they needed to demonstrate strength, but violence was always the last resort. As the purple sun began to set, they found themselves back in the preparation chamber. The Arbiter's voice held definite interest now. Most fascinating. You treated our hunters not as mere obstacles to be overcome, but as potential allies to be understood. Even in a combat trial, you sought comprehension before confrontation. Sarah stepped forward. War and violence are part of humanity's history, yes, but so does our ability to turn enemies into friends, to find common ground with those who seem completely alien to us. That's how we survived and grew as a species. Indeed, the Arbiter replied. But your greatest test still awaits. The final trial will challenge more than your minds or your combat skills. It will test the very essence of what makes your species unique. As the Arbiter's presence faded, the team gathered to rest and prepare. They had passed 2 trials, but all their studies of the historical records suggested the final challenge would be unlike anything they could anticipate. Whatever comes next, Torres said, checking their remaining equipment, we stick to what's worked. We're not just four individuals anymore. We're humanity's representatives. And humanity's greatest strength, Zhang added, has always been our ability to face the unknown with both wisdom and courage. The chamber walls pulsed with anticipation as they prepared for their final trial. The Valdorians had seen humans think, had seen them fight. Now they would see what humans would sacrifice for their principles, and what they would never compromise. The preparation chamber's walls began to pulse with an unfamiliar pattern. Dr. Reed, who had been studying the Valdorians' architectural communications, straightened up with concern. This is different. The resonance patterns have changed completely. Different how? Sarah asked, adjusting her diplomatic band. Their previous successes had taught them to pay attention to even the smallest details. It's like, Reed searched for the right words. Like the chamber itself is uncertain. All previous patterns had clear mathematical structures. This is almost chaotic. The arbiter's voice filled the room, but this time it seemed to come from everywhere at once, not just from above. You have shown wisdom in the trial of mind. You have shown restraint and understanding in the trial of combat. Now faces you the trial of spirit, the true measure of any species' worth. The chamber dissolved around them, but instead of dropping into a new arena, they found themselves in what appeared to be a Valdorian ship's control center. Through the viewport, they could see Earth. This is a simulation, Torres said immediately, her military training kicking in as she assessed their surroundings. But why show us this? Not a simulation, the arbiter corrected. A possibility. What you see before you is one potential future. In it, your species has proven worthy of elevation to the galactic community. You have been given access to Valdorian technology, including our gravitic drives and energy matrices. Zhang studied the alien controls with fascination. This is decades, maybe centuries ahead of our current technology. But there is a cost, the arbiter continued. Observe. The viewport shifted, showing them flashes of Earth's possible future. Cities transformed by crystal technology, human biology enhanced by Valdorian science, Earth's military forces strengthened by alien weapons. But with each image, something else became apparent. Human culture was being slowly replaced by Valdorian influences. Earth was becoming more alien than human. This is the path of elevation, the arbiter explained. To join the galactic community fully, species must embrace Valdorian ways, our technology, our philosophy, our understanding of reality itself. Many species have made this choice. Sarah stepped closer to the viewport, watching her homeworld shimmer with alien crystal. And those who didn't choose this path were deemed unready. They remain isolated, developing at their own pace. Some eventually destroy themselves. Others take millennia to achieve what we offer freely. I understand now, Reed said softly. This isn't just about proving our worth to you. It's about whether we're willing to sacrifice our identity to progress. Torres turned from the viewport. You're asking us to choose between rapid advancement and maintaining our independence, our humanity. Every species faces this choice, the arbiter confirmed. Those who accept elevation prosper under our guidance. Those who refuse remain alone. But that's not really prosperity, is it? Zhang observed. Looking at these readings, the elevated species become essentially Valdorian in all but appearance. They lose what made them unique. Sarah walked to the center of the control room, her diplomatic training helping her find the words they needed. You've been testing the wrong things. You measured our intelligence, our capacity for violence and peace, our ability to adapt. But you never asked why we do what we do. Explain, the arbiter commanded. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our intelligence or our restraint or even our adaptability. It's our ability to grow without losing ourselves, to learn from others without becoming them, to face the unknown on our own terms. You would reject elevation. The arbiter's tone was unreadable. Condemn your species to centuries of slow development. Torres stepped forward. We choose to develop at our own pace, learning from our mistakes, celebrating our successes. Taking the best of what we learn, Reed added, while remaining true to who we are. Even if it means facing the cosmos alone. The Arbiter pressed. Zhang smiled. Humans have never needed to be like everyone else to work with them. Our history is full of different cultures learning to cooperate while maintaining their unique identities. Sarah addressed the Arbiter directly. We appreciate the offer of elevation, but we would rather earn our place in the galaxy by showing you who we are, not by becoming who you think we should be. The control room shimmered around them, and suddenly they were back in their original diplomatic vessel, approaching the Valdorian station just as they had at the start. But this time, something was different. The station's crystal structure was reconfiguring itself, opening up in a pattern they hadn't seen before. The Arbiter's voice held something new. Respect. In all our millennia of testing species, few have recognized this truth. True worth lies not in the willingness to change, but in knowing which changes to embrace and which to reject. Does this mean humanity failed the trial? Sarah asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. No, Ambassador Chen. It means you have proven yourselves worthy in a way we had almost forgotten to look for. Perhaps, the Arbiter paused, perhaps it is the Valdorians who have something to learn from humanity. As their ship docked with the station, the team shared knowing looks. They had come seeking first contact, and they had found something far more valuable. The confidence to face a galaxy of wonders while remaining proudly, uniquely human. The diplomatic vessel Unity's docking clamps engaged with the Valdorian station, but this time the crystalline architecture welcomed them with a rainbow of colors, a far cry from the austere reception of their first arrival. Ambassador Sarah Chen led her team through the airlock, their expressions composed but alert. They had passed the trials, but experience had taught them that with the Valdorians, nothing was ever quite what it seemed. Welcome, true representatives of Earth. The Arbiter greeted them, their crystalline form now displaying colors that matched the station's welcoming hues. You have earned the right to speak for your species, not through our elevation, but through your own merit. We appreciate the recognition, Sarah replied carefully, but I'm curious about something. How many species before us chose to maintain their independence? The Arbiter's form shifted, creating patterns that Dr. Reed recognized as indicating deep thought. In 50,000 years of testing, only 3 species have made the choice you did. All others either accepted elevation or failed our trials completely. Captain Torres studied the surrounding architecture with new understanding. And those 3 species, what happened to them? They became what you might call alternatives, the Arbiter explained. They developed their own paths to the stars. Different from ours, yet equally valid. They now maintain their own territories in the galaxy, independent but allied with the Valdorian consensus. Dr. Zhang's eyes lit up with scientific curiosity. That's why this station's architecture changed. You're not just acknowledging our choice. You're adapting to it, learning from it, just as we learn from you. Perceptive, the Arbiter acknowledged. Our civilization's greatest flaw has been our certainty that our path was the only path to advancement. Each species that chose independence showed us another way. You humans, the Arbiter's colors shifted to a deep blue of respect. You argued for your choice with a clarity we had not encountered before. Sarah stepped forward, her diplomatic training sensing the moment for a bold proposal. Then perhaps it's time for a new kind of relationship between our species. Not one of elevation and subordination, but of mutual learning and respect. You would propose an alliance between equals. The Arbiter's tone held a note of surprise. Even though our technological advancement far exceeds yours. Technology isn't everything, Torres pointed out. Your trials prove that. Sometimes a fresh perspective is worth more than an advanced weapon. Reed nodded in agreement. We've already shown we can understand your mathematical concepts without abandoning our own way of thinking. Imagine what we could learn from each other if we approached exchange as equals, each bringing our unique strengths to the table. And our trials demonstrated that humanity can adapt and learn without losing our essential nature, Zhang added. That's a skill your civilization seems to value. The Arbiter was silent for a long moment, their crystalline form cycling through various colors as they processed this proposal. Finally, they spoke. For millennia, we have guided younger species, shaping them in our image. But perhaps it is time for the Valdorian consensus to evolve as well. The station's walls suddenly came alive with projection, showing star maps and territorial boundaries. These are the independent species I spoke of, the Arxer, the Nethka, and the Zintri. Each maintains their own sector of space, developing according to their own principles while maintaining diplomatic ties with us and each other. Sarah studied the map with growing excitement. You're offering us a place among them, our own sector to develop as we choose. With certain provisions, the Arbiter clarified. Technological assistance will be offered, but never imposed. Cultural exchange will be encouraged, but not required. And most importantly, Earth will serve as a bridge between the Valdorian consensus and the independent sectors. A diplomatic hub, Sarah realized, using our demonstrated ability to understand different perspectives while maintaining our own identity. Precisely. Your species has shown a remarkable capacity for balance between progress and preservation, between strength and wisdom, between independence and cooperation. These are traits the galaxy needs more of, not less. The station's architecture shifted again, creating a grand chamber around them. Other crystalline beings began to appear, representatives of the Valdorian consensus's highest councils. Ambassador Chen, the Arbiter, announced formally, "We invite Earth to join the galactic community, not as an elevated species, but as an independent power and diplomatic mediator. Will you accept this role on behalf of your people?" Sarah looked at her team, the soldier, the linguist, the scientist, each of them representing different aspects of humanity's potential. They nodded, understanding the historic significance of this moment. "On behalf of Earth, we accept," Sarah declared, "with the understanding that we will forge this new relationship together, learning from each other while respecting our differences." The chamber erupted in crystalline harmonics, the Valdorian equivalent of applause. The Arbiter's form blazed with bright colors. "Then let this mark the beginning of a new era in galactic relations. The age of forced elevation is ending. The age of mutual growth begins." As the Unity prepared to return to Earth with news of this unprecedented diplomatic achievement, Sarah found herself back at the viewport where their journey had begun. The stars looked different now, not distant lights to be reached through submission to alien ways, but a field of possibilities to be explored on humanity's own terms. "You know," Torres said, joining her at the viewport, "when we first arrived, I thought we were in for the fight of our lives." "We were," Sarah replied with a smile. "We just fought it with words and wisdom instead of weapons, and we won something better than victory. We won respect." The Unity's engines hummed to life, carrying them back to Earth with a message of hope. Humanity had found its place among the stars not by becoming something else, but by remaining proudly, defiantly, and uniquely human.